I'm a man in my 60s who was deeply hurt by his child. Anyone who has brought a child into this world will understand. You know what a miracle and how lovely that child is. The one created and born through you. It feels miraculous to have achieved something. Unbelievable, creating a life, and you feel the courage to do anything for that child, who was born into this world trusting only you. Of course, there are exceptions, but for most parents, life is filled with love for their child from the moment that child is born. However, sadly, when you see the news or these kinds of YouTube stories, it seems that parents being hurt by their precious children is not uncommon. I too have come to live my life carrying such painful wounds, and I'm here to share my story as it seems. There are others who have had similar experiences. I am a businessman who runs a stone company. I mainly cut and polish natural stone collected from mountains and supply it as exterior cladding or lobby interior materials for buildings. Sometimes I also produce and supply stone statues or sculptures through outsourcing. I was originally born into a poor farming family. Around the age of 20, I moved to Seoul from the countryside without any connections, and the first place I worked was a stone factory. At that time, I was just a laborer living hand to mouth. After learning the trade from the owner, whom I followed like a mentor, I finally started my own small stone company in my 30s, and I truly worked my fingers to the bone to grow the company, driven by the sole desire to provide a good life for my children. As my company's reputation grew and trust was established, its name gradually became known. Now, after more than 30 years, it has become a reasonably sized company. Thanks to this, I was able to provide a good life for my wife, who married me trusting only me during those poor years. And I was able to raise my children, my lovely kids, allowing them to study as much as they wanted. Dad, you must be tired. Let me massage your shoulders. My wife and I had one daughter, Ji-yoon, and two sons, Sung-ho and Jin-ho. And Ji-yoon, our eldest daughter, was especially kind and mature from a young age. Oh, it's fine. My shoulders are tough. I don't want those little hands to get rough. Hey, what good are these little hands if they aren't used to show filial piety? Turn around quickly, Dad. That daughter grew up to be a very kind and admirable child, who always knew how to show respect to her parents. Whether it was her rushing over to my wife, who was working in the kitchen offering to help, or her diligently massaging my stiff shoulders with her tiny hands, I was often overcome with emotion by how lovely she was. Hey, Sung-ho, Jin-ho, stop fighting. You're upsetting Mom and Dad. Sis, you're not our parents. Why are you always nagging us? I wouldn't have to if you didn't always cause trouble. I scold you first, so you don't make Mom and Dad worry when you're always fighting and acting up. Sung-ho, did you finish your homework? Jin-ho, why are you glaring at me? If you're so upset, you should have been born before me. My daughter would put her hands on her hips and quite maturely keep her younger brothers in line. That's not to say the three children didn't get along. Ji-yoon was also good to her brothers. Having been academically strong since childhood, she would teach her brothers without her parents having to intervene. And if the boys fell and came home hurt, she would personally apply medicine to their wounds. As a result, the boys grew up to like their older sister very much. Ji-yoon, what's your dream? Me? To live happily with Mom and Dad for a long, long time. I wish you two would stay healthy for a long time, so I can show you filial piety. There are two kids in my class whose parents passed away early. I feel sorry for them, but seeing them makes me realize how thankful I should be for every day. So Dad, you have to manage your health consistently starting now. Got it? While other kids' parents complained that their children wouldn't even talk to them during adolescence, our daughter was so mature and dutiful. Once when Ji-yoon was in the 11th grade, I asked her about her dream, and she gave me such an admirable answer. That daughter was my wife's and my pride and joy. Even after she grew up, my friends and acquaintances all envied the daughter, who held her father's hand as she walked. If anything happens, call us, and please be careful. All right? Oh, Mom, where am I going? Dad is here too. Because she was smart, Ji-yoon was accepted into a university in the United States and went to study abroad after becoming an adult. I was proud that she got into a good university, but tears blinded my eyes as I sent away my daughter, who was like my own life. My wife and I were secretly worried that our daughter might settle in the U.S. forever. We wouldn't oppose it, but we would be too lonely. However, after graduating from university, Ji-yoon returned to Korea and found a good job at a reputable company. It would have been good to find a job in the U.S. too, but the country I was born and raised in is the best. Because Mom and Dad and Sung-ho and Jin-ho aren't in the U.S., I want to be next to my family. When she returned from studying abroad, Ji-yoon had become even more mature. Just like our well-raised daughter, our sons also grew up healthy and kind. Seeing our children grow up so admirably without ever causing trouble made us feel full even without eating. They say raising children is the hardest job in the world, but my wife and I were so proud of our kids. Mom, Dad, I have someone I want to marry. Really, who is he? He works at an IT company. We get along well and he's kind and diligent. As time passed, Ji-yoon, who was nearing her mid-30s, brought a man home to introduce as her future husband. When I heard about his profession beforehand, he was a man who worked at a good company, like our daughter, and had a similar income level. However, to be honest, the son-in-law Minjun, whom I met for the first time with high expectations, did not win my favor. Hello, father, mother. I am your future son-in-law, Minjun. Oh, welcome. You came early. Was traffic okay on the way? There was traffic, but I left an hour early, so I could arrive on time. It's the most important day of my life, so I couldn't be late. Judging by his words, he seemed polite, and his actions were impeccable. But the son-in-law's face made a poor impression on me. I've met so many people and been double-crossed so many times while running my business. As a result, I naturally developed an ability to read people's faces, and his face gave me an unsettling feeling. However, his words and behavior seemed fine, so I couldn't outright oppose the marriage, and I was conflicted. I decided to at least bring it up later, so I quietly asked Ji-yoon, "How long have you been dating Minjun? Do you really have to marry him?" "About a year and a half." "Yes, Suriyasa Tabasturin. I really love him." "But why? Didn't you like him?" "You know I'm pretty good at reading people, Dad." But his face gave me a bad vibe. "Dad, if people hear you oppose the marriage because of his face, they'll criticize you. That's prejudice. You're not going to object to my marriage just because of his face when he hasn't done anything wrong, are you?" "I really love him, Dad." At Ji-yoon's words, I awkwardly fell silent. I let my daughter get married. Aside from the uneasy feeling about his face, there was nothing particularly wrong with the man. And the in-laws we met at the meeting were also very nice. Most importantly, he had a decent job and my daughter liked him. So I just figured I was being too sensitive. "Thank you, father-in-law. I will repay this kindness with filial piety for a long, long time." "Thank you, Dad. I will truly live a good life." The son-in-law's family was not well off. So, hoping that my daughter and son-in-law could have an easier start, I gave them 300 million won approx. $220,000. My hope was that they would appreciate the value of money. My daughter and son-in-law pooled their savings with the money I gave them and bought a suitable apartment in Seoul. "But Ji-yoon, when are you going to have a child?" "Oh, dear, the kids will figure that out themselves." "Why are you asking such a thing?" "Why? I was just curious." "I'm not demanding it. Minjin and I want to enjoy our newlywed life first, Dad." "Okay, but enjoying your newlywed life is good, but don't forget that if you delay too long, it might be difficult to have children." My daughter and son-in-law kept postponing their plan to have children, saying they wanted to enjoy their newlywed life. I trusted that my smart and mature daughter would handle everything well. However, it seemed these two were enjoying their newlywed life a little too much. One day, a little over a year after they got married, June and Minjun visited our house, scratching their heads and suddenly asked to borrow money. "What? Money? What for?" "We're a bit short on the credit card bill. Could you lend us about 3 million won approxim?" 22 Kashi 100, Dad. "We're sorry, Father." I was shocked by the mention of a credit card bill shortfall. I knew that their combined net monthly income exceeded 10 million won, so I wondered how they had spent their money to be short by that much. When I asked what had happened, the reason was utterly ridiculous. "Actually, I've been so stressed at work lately, so last month, on a whim, I took a vacation, and we went to Hawaii together. We thought relaxing and having fun at a resort would relieve the stress. But I guess we went a little overboard, and the credit card bill was too high. We're sorry." "What? You children, do you have any sense? You have to use money responsibly. How you spend money is more important than how you earn it." "Wait, you two earn that much, but you don't have even 3 million won saved." No, we have savings, but we didn't want to break the fixed deposit. The interest is too precious. And actually, we've been traveling and enjoying our newlywed life, going to fine dining and all, so we don't have much spare cash. We apologize, Father. We were too excited as newlyweds." "Oh, my head. Well, it's your money, so it's not my place to interfere too much. But unlike you, many people live difficult lives struggling to pay off loans. So please, make a spending plan. While reflecting on how precious and terrifying money is, my wife and I both gripped our foreheads. When they said they hadn't saved the substantial money they earned and had impulsively gone to Hawaii just to relieve stress, I had thought she was a child without any cause for worry. But I was a little disappointed. Still, I helped them. I thought, how stressed must she have been to take such an impulsive trip? So, I just considered it pocket money and let it go. A few months later, the two came back, asking to borrow money again. But this time, the reason was truly heartbreaking. What? Your father-in-law is sick. Why didn't you tell us sooner? We thought you would just worry if we told you. But it's a rare disease, so a lot of parts aren't covered by insurance. He just received his first round of chemotherapy. And when we totaled up everything, it cost over 10 million won. Father, you know our financial situation is difficult, right? The treatment costs so much that my father said he would just refuse the chemo altogether. How could we just let that happen to my father? We helped a little first. But actually, we recently invested some of our fixed deposit money elsewhere, after listening to a friend's advice. So that money is tied up and we can't use it. Please help us save my father. Dad, we promise to pay this back later. Please, I was so shocked to hear that. The father-in-law had recently been diagnosed with a rare disease. My son-in-law and daughter said they hadn't saved much money, and that their current savings were tied up elsewhere, begging me to help. When a human life is at stake, how could I pretend not to know? I told them not to worry about the treatment costs and lent them the 30 million won approx. $22,000 they asked for. I never imagined they would lie about something as serious as a parent's illness. I was planning to visit, but since they said he was receiving outpatient treatment, I called the father-in-law instead of visiting. We didn't usually keep in touch, but I thought it was the right thing to do. Father-in-law, how is your health? Oh yes, I'm perfectly fine. I am very healthy. But what's the occasion for your call? What? Aren't you currently battling cancer? Cancer? Oh my, such a frightening thing. I am very healthy. Ah, I see. I must have been mistaken. It was then that I realized my daughter and son-in-law had lied to me. I quickly made an excuse and hung up the phone. I think I was ashamed to reveal my daughter's wrongdoing. Angry, I immediately called the two of them to the house and scolded them. Give me back my money right now. Where did you spend that money? How could you tell such an outrageous lie? Did you call my father? See? What did I tell you? I knew father-in-law would call. I said it was too risky. Stop whispering and tell me the truth right now. How dare you commit fraud against your own parents? We're sorry, Dad. We are truly sorry, father-in-law. Actually, the investment we made through that friend, that was true. We heard it was reliable information, so we even took out a loan and invested boldly. But we suffered a huge loss in just a few months. So, we couldn't pay off the loan and lost everything, which is why we needed the money. We didn't want to pay the interest. So we thought borrowing from you would be better. But we thought if we told you the truth, you would scold us. So, you should have told me the truth. How can you tell such a ridiculous lie just to avoid a scolding? What's wrong with you lately, Jiyun? Minjin, you're just as bad. There are things you can say and things you can't. I apologize, father-in-law. We were also in shock after losing a lot of money and weren't in our right minds. Hearing the reason, my anger flared up even more. I was shocked that they had impulsively taken out a loan to invest. But the fact that they borrowed money from me just to avoid paying the loan interest seemed so pathetic and incomprehensible. The two said they had already used the money I gave them to pay off their loan. They cried, offering to take out a new loan to give the money back, which I thought was a ridiculous idea. So I yelled at them to get out because I couldn't bear to look at them. I was furious, but my heart for my daughter was still too big, so I just let it go for now. My daughter has changed too much since she got married. What kind of bad influence did that Minjin put on her? I know. Shiyun is getting stranger and stranger since the marriage. That devoted daughter doesn't call often or visit, and she seems distracted. My wife and I sighed, worrying about our daughter, who had changed since the marriage. After that, my daughter and son-in-law seemed remorseful, visiting the house and trying to be good. My wife and I quietly watched them and never brought up the matter again. But about a year later, the two came back, bowing their heads and asked to borrow money again. Now I had developed a nervous tic, and I raised my voice, frowning. 50 million won, the amount keeps increasing. What's the reason this time? My husband and I had a small car accident while driving. And of all things, we hit a luxury car worth over 300 million won. The other party demanded a whopping 50 million won for repairs. We're sorry, Dad. They said they would sue us because we didn't have the money. Please, just help us one more time. We sincerely apologize, father-in-law. I was too careless. I was dumbfounded. They asked to borrow 50 million won for car repairs. I was so speechless that I asked what they had done with all the money they had earned. And my daughter stammered that they had been dabbling in stocks. What, stocks? Yes, we were both doing a little bit. But recently someone we know made a huge profit. We thought we could also make a fortune this time, so we invested everything we had. But it plummeted, and we couldn't recover the principal. First, it was a fraudulent investment, and now it was stocks. I was truly speechless. What is wrong with you, Ji-yoon? Min-jun? What is wrong with you? We are sorry, father-in-law. We just wanted to pay back the money we borrowed from you quickly. I was absolutely furious. The photo of the accident they showed me didn't seem like a lie, but the way the two of them were living was so pathetic and frustrating. I found their attitude of immediately running to me without trying to solve it themselves to be increasingly despicable, so I scolded them. What would you two do without me? People need to live with a plan. Ji-yoon, you were so smart. Why are you causing so much trouble and losing your financial sense? We're sorry, Dad. We truly won't do it again. We will seriously straighten ourselves out. We sincerely apologize, father-in-law. We will truly save money diligently and pay you back this time. I first chased them out of the house. They kept begging my wife for help over the phone. My soft-hearted wife persuaded me, saying we should help them, thinking this would truly be the last time. It's frustrating about the stocks, but others do it too. And they didn't want to have the accident. They promised they would never touch stocks again. So let's help them one last time. Anyway, Ji-yoon was originally smart and capable, so she'll surely come to her senses now, if only for my sake. Looking at my extremely upset wife, I reluctantly helped them for the last time. I made it absolutely clear that I would never help them again. But a few months later, the two came back, asking for money again. Do you know what the reason was this time? The son-in-law had been driving under the influence and injured someone. The two cried and begged, saying the other party was demanding 100 million won approx. $74,000 for a settlement. I was immensely disappointed in the son-in-law, who had now committed drunk driving, and in my daughter, who was trying to ask me for help again, despite my strict warning. I yelled in great anger. Drunk driving, that can kill someone. How dare you do such a thing and expect me to clean up your mess? Are you even human? We're sorry, Dad. We sincerely apologize, father-in-law. I will never touch a steering wheel again. Please, just help us this one time. If we can't settle, I'm definitely going to jail. You've said just this one time so many times. But because you are my child and my son-in-law, I couldn't ignore it. I helped you repeatedly, even forgiving your ridiculous lies. But this one time has turned into not 2, not 3, but 4 times. I told you clearly last time that there would be no more help. So, either sell your house or take out a loan against it. You two solve this now. Or go to jail. Get out. I don't want to see you. I felt I had done enough. So I chased them away without even looking at them. I was too disappointed. This time, even my wife was so angry that she didn't suggest helping the daughter and son-in-law. My wife and I ignored all calls from the two, who were desperately begging for help. Eventually, my daughter sent a text message saying they had taken out a loan against the house to pay the settlement. The message also included the news that Min-jun had received a license suspension and a suspended sentence, along with an apology. A few months later, the two visited the house with a basket of fruit. I had been so angry that I had ignored all their calls. So this was the first time I had seen them since I kicked them out. Since time had passed, my feelings had softened a lot. So I let them into the house. They properly knelt and asked for forgiveness. Dad, you must have been very disappointed in us. We are truly sorry. But we've stopped gambling and have been diligently saving our salaries. We haven't been extravagant either. We are trying hard to live right now that we've come to our senses. So could you please forgive us and just watch us one last time? It's scary and hard being far away from Mom and Dad. You know I really love you both. Father-in-law, I am truly sorry for disappointing you by drunk driving, which I should never have done. Since that day, I haven't even touched alcohol. And just as my wife said, I am truly saving money diligently. Although I was suspended from the company for 3 months due to the drunk driving accident, I worked very hard to save money after returning to work. It was a relief that I was able to avoid being fired by sincerely begging the company, and even posting a public apology on the in-house bulletin board. Father-in-law, if you give us just one chance, we promise we will never lie again, never borrow money again, and never disappoint you again." My daughter and son-in-law cried, saying they had truly reflected. Honestly, my disappointment was so great that I couldn't fully trust them. However, my wife persuaded me, suggesting I should finally let go of my anger. And since I couldn't live without seeing my daughter forever, I decided to give them one last chance. However, I drew the line, saying that if they disappointed me one more time, I would make a definitive decision. The two children, who thanked me, repeatedly tried hard to be good to my wife and me after that. They often visited the house to cook for us, and often came on weekends to spend time with the family. Minjin and I are planning to have a baby soon. We went for a checkup at the OBGYN, and we both have no issues. My daughter and son-in-law said that after coming to their senses, they were diligently paying off the loan from the settlement and saving money steadily. The two said they had finally made plans to have a child. I had worried a lot, but I was relieved that my daughter seemed to have truly come to her senses now. That was about 8 months after the two had changed. But shortly after we discussed their plans for a baby, my daughter called. On the phone, she said something very thoughtful. "Dad, I received a large bonus from work this time. Now that we're planning to have a baby, we'll have a lot of expenses for the child in the future, right? So before that, I want to send you two on a trip abroad just once, with our own money. We've done so many things we're sorry for, so we wanted to show you some filial piety. A trip abroad? I appreciate the thought, but use that money to pay off your debt first. It will take a while to pay it all off, but I really want to send you this time. We've been so sorry for everything we've done. I want to show you some filial piety. It's also your wedding anniversary soon. We'll book the tickets and hotels, so just go this time. Okay? It would be nice if you and Mom could go abroad while you're still young." My daughter and son-in-law were motivated by their desire to show filial piety out of guilt. I refused a couple of times, but in the end, I accepted my daughter's offer. My wife and I had never gone on a trip abroad alone, so I figured we might as well go this time while we were still young. Anyway, I felt touched by the sincerity of my daughter and son-in-law, who were trying to repay their guilt after finally coming to their senses. My wife and I were truly happy, thinking that my daughter had returned to the kind and pure child she used to be. A short while later, my wife and I set off on our overseas trip. Thanks to my daughter and son-in-law, my wife was excited, buying new clothes and a hat to wear on the trip. A few days before we left, I felt the same way, so for the first time since our wedding rings, we bought matching couple t-shirts. This is the first time we've done something like this since our wedding rings. You seem excited too. Of course, most importantly, I'm so happy that our Ji-yoon seems to have truly come to her senses. Since it's a trip she's sending us on, how could I not be excited? When we come back, I should buy those two some nice gifts at the duty-free shop. The night before the trip, they called to say goodbye in advance. "Mom, Dad, we have to go to work tomorrow, so we can't see you off. We're calling you now. Have a good trip. We even gave you a generous amount of spending money when we exchanged currency. So eat lots of delicious food. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, have a good trip. Please call us anytime if anything happens. I will rush over." How can you rush over when you're not even in Korea? Anyway, thank you. Thank you, Ji-yoon. We'll have a great trip. Next to my daughter, the son-in-law also gave a loud greeting. My sons, who were living separately closer to their workplaces, also called us the next morning on their way to work to wish us a safe trip. "Oh my, why is it raining so hard?" "I know. The wind is fierce. I wonder if the plane will be able to take off." However, shortly after we set off for the trip, it began to rain heavily and the wind was strong, which worried us. Still, we waited for the boarding time at Incheon Airport, thinking, surely nothing bad would happen, when an alert popped up on my phone. It was the news we had hoped wasn't true. The flight has been canceled due to poor weather conditions today. The fierce winds ultimately led to all flights being canceled. We had no choice but to return home. My wife and I rode a taxi back home, expressing our regret repeatedly. Sigh. Ji-yoon and Minjin put so much effort into sending us, and this is a real shame. I know. We were hoping to receive a gift of filial piety for once, but the best-laid plans often go awry. Nothing we can do about it. At the time, we had no idea. We didn't know that a horrifying truth awaited us in the house. That should have been empty. My wife and I couldn't even imagine that the fierce wind and rain that day were a merciful presence that prevented a great catastrophe from befalling us. As we entered the house and punched in the password at the front door, my wife and I were shocked. What in the world? "Shh, honey, is someone inside?" Two pairs of shoes were placed in the hallway. One was a man's and the other was a woman's. My wife and I silenced our breaths and footsteps, tiptoeing inside the house. The front door of our house was relatively thick, and the house was large, so it seemed the intruders hadn't heard us come in. We cautiously approached the master bedroom, where we heard voices. And when we saw the identity of the intruders inside, we nearly fainted. Ugh, this isn't it either. What on earth is the password? The two people, sitting in front of the safe in the master bedroom, struggling to crack the password, were none other than my daughter Jae-yoon and my son-in-law Min-jun. The two were bickering with each other, trying desperately to open my safe. Are you sure you saw father-in-law enter the password last time? I definitely saw it. It was 2024. He must have changed it again, Dad. What could it be? They say the gold inside the safe is the real fortune, and there's cash in here too, right? The two were after the gold and cash I kept in the safe. I had bought about 200 million won worth of gold 10 years ago. The price of gold had soared several times over the last decade, and my daughter knew about the gold's existence. I frequently changed the safe's password just in case, which is why Ji-yoon couldn't open it. Next to the two of them were a huge duffel bag and a large carry-on suitcase. The open bags contained familiar items. The large frame painting leaning on the floor was also an item I recognized. Those items in the painting were my expensive art collection. I had started collecting art after developing an interest in sculptures through my business. My collection included one painting and three small sculptures, with one sculpture worth over 70 million won. The son-in-law and daughter were also stealing these artworks. It turns out the two had planned this meticulous scheme to send us on an overseas trip, so they could steal the art and empty the safe. I was so utterly shocked and angry that I yelled loudly, "What are you two doing?" "Huh? Dad, Mom, why are you here?" The two who turned their heads and discovered us instantly turned as white as a sheet. Then they nervously stood up. I walked up to them and slapped each of them across the face. "You sent us on a trip abroad for this. You despicable creatures. You said you came to your senses, but now you've become house thieves." "Huh?" I screamed at those who were not fit to be called humans. Clutching their cheeks, they knelt and started begging. "We're sorry, Dad. We're truly sorry. We apologize, father-in-law." "Shut up. Just tell me, why did you do this? Why?" "The truth is," my daughter began to spill the truth, tears streaming down her face. But that truth was utterly appalling. The two had fallen into gambling addiction. "What? Gambling? Since when?" "Since shortly after we got married." "No, actually, I've been a severe gambling addict since I was studying abroad." "What did you say?" "Min-jun and I happened to go to Las Vegas with an acquaintance when I was studying abroad, and I encountered the casino for the first time. After that, I completely fell into gambling." Ji-yoon said that she had been gambling since her days studying abroad. I remembered times when she used to contact me, asking for money during her study abroad days. I had sent her money, never hesitating, thinking she was struggling overseas. Ji-yoon said that after wasting her life on gambling, she finally pulled herself together and focused on her studies. She graduated successfully and returned to Korea, only to find the frightening temptation of Gangwon land awaiting. Her Korea's only legal casino that allows entry to locals. She had been resisting the temptation, but after she got married and confessed her past to her husband, Min-jun suggested, "Now that you've cured your addiction, let's just go to Gangwon land together once." She went thinking, just one time won't hurt, but that was a mistake. Having set foot in the casino again, my daughter fell back into gambling. This time, she and her husband became addicted together. So, all the excuses they had used to borrow money from me, the credit card bill, the investment, the stocks, even the drunk driving were all lies due to gambling. Then what about that accident photo? We can easily forge that kind of thing with a computer these days. We thought we had to show you proof for you to believe us. We both quit our jobs to frequent the casinos, so we are currently unemployed. We are burdened with insurmountable debt. The shock was immense. The fact that everything that came out of their mouths was a lie gave me goosebumps. My wife was just as shocked, trembling beside me. My daughter and son-in-law were now burdened with private loan debt to secure gambling funds and living expenses. Ji-yoon confessed that they couldn't even pay off the loan they took against the house, and it was already in foreclosure. She said they were currently on the run from private loan sharks. Now we have nowhere else to get money. So we used the money we borrowed from a loan shark to send you two on a trip and plan to run away with these things. We had no hope left otherwise. Dad, please save us. If you just pay off the debt, we will never do this again. Never. In the midst of all that, My daughter still had the nerve to ask for help one last time. I was so utterly dumbfounded that I screamed. Am I crazy? I told you clearly. If you disappointed me one more time, I would make a definitive decision. Did you really think I wouldn't call the police after you did this? Just because I'm your parent. Did you think I couldn't report you? But family members don't get punished, even if you report them, because of that law, the relative-in-law theft law. Chinjuk Sangdore. My daughter's answer was truly a sight to behold. My daughter had committed this act. With Minjun trusting in the relative-in-law theft law, the son-in-law also subtly nodded his head beside her. I was speechless and said, let's see. Let's see if you get punished or not. I will definitely sue you, and I will use whatever means necessary to make sure you are punished. Do you think I can't do it? I always do what I say. No, do you even see me as your father? How dare you try to take your parents' property like this? If you had just told me from the start that you were addicted to gambling, I would have helped you no matter what. Because you were my kind daughter. But you shattered my heart, which tried to trust you until the very end. By deceiving me with your lies, I no longer consider you my daughter. So don't call me dad. Hello, police station. As I immediately called the police, my daughter and son-in-law rushed over in a panic, but I coldly pushed them away. My wife couldn't stop crying, watching our family fall apart. I immediately filed a lawsuit against them. Because the crime was premeditated and the amount they attempted to steal was substantial, they were investigated for attempted special theft. They argued the relative-in-law theft law, but it turned out that theft accompanied by illegal entry into the dwelling was an exception. Apparently, even if they are family, if they enter a house without the owner's permission and steal something, they can be punished for general theft. Hearing that, they looked completely devastated. How can you sue your family? Please, please withdraw the lawsuit. Dad, how can you send me to prison? Please, please save me. I'm truly sorry. We sincerely apologize, father-in-law. Please, please save us. My daughter and son-in-law came to our house and begged for their lives several times. But my wife and I didn't even flinch. However, the in-laws who found out the whole truth late also came and knelt before us. We have truly raised our son poorly. Please, just don't send him to prison. We will crawl on the floor if you ask us to. We are so sorry. Knowing how difficult their lives had been, my heart softened a little when I saw them. So I spoke to the two, who had come to beg for mercy again with a cold expression. Fine, I will withdraw the lawsuit, but you are no longer my daughter. I will live my life thinking my daughter died today. So, never appear before me again. And you, Minjin, know that you were saved thanks to your parents. I think they still consider you their son. Aren't you ashamed in front of such parents? It doesn't matter to me where you live, but at least don't live a shameful life. Our business is finished, so get lost, both of you. I prevented them from going to prison, but they could not avoid punishment in the end. Even though I withdrew the lawsuit, they could not avoid criminal punishment. However, my act of showing leniency was recognized, and the two only received a suspended sentence. After that, my wife and I lived for 3 years without seeing our daughter. We had no news of where or how they were living, and we didn't try to find out. Of course, since she is my child, I couldn't forget her for a single day. But I simply couldn't forgive her. But this Chuseok, my daughter visited the house. I was shocked when my sons and I were all eating together. For some reason, my daughter was dressed in rags. That daughter knelt before my wife and me and began to weep. Mom, Dad, I'm so miserable. I heard that after becoming a credit delinquent, she was chased by private loan sharks and eventually divorced Minjun. After that, my daughter said she lived a lonely life, moving from one cheap Goshiwan to another. Everyone is laughing and having fun for Chuseok. But my figure eating instant ramen alone in the Goshiwan was so pathetic. Mom, Dad, it's been 3 years. Can't you forgive me now? I'm truly sorry. I have really quit gambling, and I've truly come to my senses. My daughter begged for forgiveness, saying she was so lonely. My wife and sons all looked at me. My wife seemed to be on the verge of forgiving our daughter, but I had no intention of doing so. I thought my daughter still hadn't come to her senses. If you had truly come to your senses, you wouldn't have lived in such a state until now. You would have gotten a job somewhere. I don't believe you when you say you quit gambling or came to your senses. Go, you destroyed your own happiness. I told you clearly then that I no longer have a daughter. Honey, quickly call her a taxi and send her away. Dad, please! At my stern voice, my wife had no choice but to send Jiyun away. However, as she is her daughter, my wife gave her about 500,000 won. But I pretended not to notice even that. After that, my wife and sons gradually began to persuade me to forgive my daughter. So, I have been contemplating lately. I am a devoted viewer of these kinds of stories, and when I hear a story as a third party, I can be cold and decisive. You shouldn't take her back. I'd be furious. Something like that. But when it becomes my own problem, I find it hard to make a judgment. That's why I'm sending this story, hoping to hear your advice while I contemplate. Of course, since she is the child I raised with love, I also sincerely hope that my daughter genuinely repents and comes to her senses. But do you, the audience, think that I should forgive and help my daughter because she is still my child? Or do you think it is right to continue to ignore her? I would be truly grateful if you could spare some time to help me organize my thoughts. There must be many people who are worried about their children like me. I agree that the saying from my seniors, raising children is the hardest thing in life, is absolutely true these days. Still, I hope that such a horrible event will not happen in your lives. Finally, everyone, gambling is a terrifying thing that destroys the lives of decent people and their families. So please, I urge you not to even go near gambling. As someone who has personally witnessed its frightening reality, I sincerely ask this of you. I will end my story here. Thank you to everyone who listened until the end. I hope you all find happiness. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, leave a comment, and set your notifications.